What's going on, guys? Dropping another video real quick before I take off to the gym, hence the water. We gotta stay hydrated. Can't miss leg day. Um, Wanted to talk about last night's fight with Dimitri Bivol versus Joe Smith Jr. Not a bad fight. I like Dimitri Bivol. He's a solid fighter. His English has gotten better. Been watching him for a little bit. In terms of the fight, he looked good. He looked sharp. He looked composed. His jab was real good. His 1-2 was good. Um, his left hook was starting to land, especially the second half of the fight. He was landing his hook pretty decently. Um, Joe Smith Jr. He's big. He's tough. He has heart. Um, he actually was. I would say he's probably the first to rock Dimitri Bivol. He definitely caught him in that right hand in the 10th round. So but Dimitri Bivol, he hung tough. Um, you know, did decent for the rest of the round, but might have gave that round to Joe Smith Jr. just because Bivol did look a little bit out of it. Maybe for the next round and a half or so, and then the 12th round, Bivol looked like he was about to stop Joe Smith Jr. So it was a solid fight. More of a stay busy fight for a young champion. But I will say this about Dimitri Bivol. He's beaten now, Sullivan Barrera, good fighter, quality top 10 light heavyweight. Joe Smith Jr., another quality light heavyweight, got on the map by beating Andreas Unfara. Excuse me. Knocked him out in the first round. Then he knocked out a legend, Bernard Hopkins. And what was it, the eighth round? Excuse me. And fought with a broken jaw against a good puncher like Sullivan Barrera. So Joe Smith Jr. is tough. He's tough. He's big. Clearly has cracks. He's definitely a handy-handed fighter. Excuse me, heavy-handed fighter. Um, so another sharp performance from Bivol. Let's see, he beat Sullivan Barrera. Then he beat Isaac Chilemba, kind of a solid gatekeeper at 175, kind of like a light heavyweight Ishe Smith type, who I think just retired now. So he's had a lot of tough fights. First time he got stopped by Eric Salubin a couple weeks ago on the Tank Davis undercard. So shout out to him. Seemed like Mayweather Promotions kind of just left him to the slaughter a little bit. Heard he only got like 200K or something for his last fight. That's kind of brutal, man. So that happened. Back to the main focus. He fought Barrera, Chilemba, fought Jean Pascal. I know he kind of just halfway retired, but Jean Pascal, he's had a good career. He had a tough fight with Carl Froch, tough fights with B Hop, beat Chad Dawson, which at the time kind of took me by surprise. I didn't think he would beat him. Um, Two tough fights with Kovalev. Well, the first one was competitive. That was a fun fight. The second one was just Kovalev was just punishing John Pascal in the rematch. That was kind of beating. I think he fought Elidio Alvarez. He got outboxed in that fight, but Jean Pascal, he's a tough fighter. He's definitely been around the block, but he's a good athlete, decent power, always shown heart. He's a former champ, so he's definitely represented Canada and Haiti really well. Um, and I would say that was probably Bivol's most competitive fight to date. Just if you want to go by round standards. But it shows that Bivol's clearly better than the gatekeepers. He's better than past champions. He's better than solid contenders like Barrera, Joe Smith Jr. So he's definitely due for a big fight. He said he's down to unify at 175 or possibly drop down to 168 for like a Triple G or possibly a Canelo. Who else is at 168? I don't think Caleb Plant or David Benavidez would get that fight just because promotional network stuff. And that's probably a fight PBC is going to want to build up between Caleb Plant and David Benavidez. I know David Benavidez is like a champion in recess, so probably 2019 they're going to focus on building him back up. I know Anthony Durrell right now is the current WBC champion. I think he has cancer. I hope I'm wrong, but if he does, God bless, man. That family's had it tough. They really had their trials throughout boxing. I kind of feel for that family. So salute to him and his brother. Um, he's a good fighter, but I think in the future that'll probably be the plan for PBC. Build up that unification with Caleb Plant, who looked phenomenal against Jose Uzcategui. I would say Caleb Plant's probably the guy to beat at 168. So if Bivol is serious about moving down, which I'm kind of on the fence. I'm not a huge fan of fighters dropping down in weight, especially Bivol, who's like what 28. Look what happened to Chad Dawson when he dropped down in weight and fought a top guy, Andre Ward. That was a beating. I think Ward would have beaten Dawson anyway, but in that fashion, I don't know. That was a beat. But Ward's one of the all time greats, so you gotta put that in perspective too. But if he moves down in weight smart, I kind of agree. He's not the biggest light heavyweight, or at least for today's light heavyweight standards. Joe Smith was bigger. He looked bigger. Barrera's pretty big. Kovalev's got some decent size. Alvarez has got some decent size. Who else? Vodstick. He's got some good build to him. So a lot of the top light heavyweights are kind of big, but I don't know. I heard Zerto is kind of flirting with the idea of moving up. I heard Caleb Smith is kind of on the fence of moving up or not. So I think there's still good fights for him now, especially the unifies. I don't know if Kovalev is still with ESPN. That might have been just a one fight deal or not. Plus, he's got I think a court date in a couple of days with that domestic violence issue, and so does Marcus Brown. I think he's a little bit of trouble because when I looked up on the rankings, he's not a WBA interim champ anymore. So I was like, did they strip him already? He just beat Badu Jack. Um, I like Badu Jack too, so I was kind of surprised that Marcus Brown kind of dominated him. I mean, after the cut, it was really bad, but even before then, Marcus Brown was having his way to the fight. I thought Marcus Brown did a great job of stopping Badu Jack from going to his body. I think that was kind of one of the main keys to success. Maybe Badu Jack kind of, I don't know, got a little bit exposed a bit in terms of his body work, in terms of how he gets in range to the body. Maybe at 168 he was able to bully the guys a little bit more. Whereas at 175, guys are naturally a little bit stronger, so they're not just going to be able to, I don't want to say bull rush, but, kind of bully his way to their body rather than kind of jabbing, using angles. Not that he doesn't do that, but I think 168 he can kind of get away with just, using his strength. But 175 pound, 175 pound guys are a little bit stronger, naturally. So, but Marcus Brown looked good in his last fight, but, he might be in some trouble with the law. Domestic violence is no joke. So, um, so you got two top guys in some trouble there. So for Bivol, big fight would be with Better Biev, who I think is with DAZN. I know Better Biev's last fight was on DAZN, so um, I think he's fighting in May. Or Better Biev. He's definitely due for a big fight. I like Better Biev too. I like him. He's a solid fighter, but I need to see him in with some names. You know, I wouldn't mind seeing him versus Sullivan Barrera. I know they talked about having that fight maybe a year or so ago. So I don't think that's a bad fight. Who else could Better be a fight? Anthony Yard, who looked good Saturday. I mean, second round knockout. So how do you not look good, right? Um, I know he said he's down to fight Kovalev. That's probably a fight they'll build up just because Anthony Yarde's with Frank Warren, and he's co-signed with ESPN and whatnot. So that could be a fight they want to build up, but I don't think you should rush him. I don't think he's really. And I'm not saying Anthony Yarde can't be a good fighter, doesn't have a chance against Kovalev, but the experience gap is huge. And if we haven't, you know, been shown the last couple of years when you rush talented fighters a little too quick, you may or may not be too good. You saw what happened to Erickson Lubin. Not that he's a bad fighter. I still like Lubin. The fact that he just knocked out Ishe Smith, but was that because Ishe Smith was just, he was 40, had God knows how many wars of fighting prospects and comeback contenders. He's been doing that for probably the last 4 years. So kind of just maybe just caught him at the right time, or is Lubin really back? I don't know if it's really fair to say either way. Probably somewhere in the middle. I would like to see Lubin probably fight. I don't know, maybe Austin Trout down the line, or who else is at 154? Oh, Johannes Van Rosen just retired, huh? Man. Oh, he could fight Castano, who just had a draw with Landing Lara. I thought Lara won, but it was last couple of rounds. Lara's activity definitely slowed down. It wasn't actually a half bad fight, but to stay on topic, get back to 175. Bivol, he's definitely due for a big fight. He's had his solid defenses. He's fought his gatekeepers, his past champions, his contenders. So I think he's ready for a unification with whoever. If it's better Biev or Kovalev. I mean, they got the same promoter, so obviously him versus Kovalev, and that's a fight they've been kind of trying to build for a while. So I wouldn't mind seeing it. Kovalev did look great in the rematch with Alvarez. He was on his Roberto Duran shit. Bullies that bounce back. So, and he kind of won by shutout, to be honest. Alvarez is not a bad fighter, but to me, he was just looking for the knockout too much rather than trying to set it up. You know, I would argue Kovalev with Buddy McGirt was able to pace himself a little bit better. Maybe he was overtrained in the past couple of camps. I don't know. Kovalev seems kind of like he makes a lot of excuses, but he looked great in his last fight with Alvarez. So if he's keeps his shit together, doesn't go to jail for that domestic violence thing. Like I said earlier, that ain't no joke. So especially with the Me Too shit and whatnot. So we'll see. Like I said earlier, if Bivol wants to go down, all right. I'm not a huge fan of weight hopping, but for today's light heavyweights, he is on the smaller side. I hope they do it for the right reason. Just because maybe you can get bigger fights. Like a Triple G. Although I don't know what Triple G gonna do. He don't seem like he want to fight anybody top five ish anywhere. So I don't know. Either he's gonna continue to chase Canelo forever, or maybe he'll decide to finally move up. Who knows? Nothing against Triple G, but I don't know. It seems like a lot of these athletes don't seem to know what they want. Kevin Durant for two-time NBA Finals MVP champion, low key miserable. Kyrie Irving, from the same state, both from New Jersey, but he looks really unhappy. Um, Triple G, finally with the zone. But it took him forever to make that decision. um, I don't know. A lot of these athletes have it all, but maybe they don't. Money doesn't buy happiness. Clearly, probably helps, but it's not the end all be all. So I'm curious to see what Bivol decides to do. If he can lure Triple G at some point, now that they're both with the zone, and kind of the battle of Russia, right? Eastern Russia. So that's not a bad fight. I definitely would pick Bivol if he looks decent at the weight. if he is serious about moving to 168, I would probably take a, maybe one tune-up fight. Obviously, I know he wants a big fight, but just to get comfortable with the new division because you are going down in weight, so you don't know those extra 7 pounds that you're cutting. You know, that could inhibit you a little bit, maybe. But we'll see. You never know. There's Eubank Jr. I know he's with PBC now, so maybe that couldn't happen. But Caleb Smith, who's he's a big 168 pounder, so you might could fight him at 175 one day anyway. And then there's Zerto, big 168 pounder. Um, like I said, the only fights for Bivol at 168 really is either Caleb Smith, Canelo, if he, I would assume, becomes undisputed at 161st. Because he did talk about unifying the whole division by the end of the year. So props to him if he pulls it off. Jacobs, that's not an easy test. I know people are worried about the judges when it comes to Canelo, and rightfully so. But I think we got to be somewhat optimistic and just hope uh, that the judges will get it right. I think it's fair to say that Canelo's going to have at least one judge that's going to at least call it a draw for Canelo's favor. The close rounds are more than likely going to go to Canelo. So for Jacobs, he's going to have to win definitively. And Team Jacobs is talking about moved up to 168 pretty soon. So that's a fight. And he's with the zone. So that's a fight they can make. Bivol versus Danny Jacobs. So, we'll see what happens. If he can't unify right away at 175, and he wants to try his hand at 168, if he can get a big fight, why not? Go for it. Um, he looked good Saturday. He really looked good. He got buzzed a little bit, but, he bounced back. He was solid. Like I said, round 10, he might have lost that round just because he did get pretty noticeably, rocked. 11th round, he was a bit more gun shy. And then the 12th round, he looked, like he was, back. So we'll see what happens. But, a lot of noise that, Bivol's making. He's a solid fighter, good boxer, puncher, counter puncher. Got to work on his hooks a little bit. They kind of be slappy. I like his straight punches. His 1-2 is real sharp, but his hook sometimes it's cool, and sometimes it's sharpen it up a little bit. Get a little more versatile with your combination punching. But from what I've seen, I like Bivol. I think he's definitely due for a big fight. So we'll see what happens with him and his career, the rest of the division. Definitely stay tuned, guys. More videos here to come. Let me know your thoughts on Bivol's last performance versus Joe Smith Jr. What do you think about his possible future, whether it's at 175 or 168? Some interesting things are happening. Some of the top dogs, 175, are getting into the law trouble, and then 160 pounders might move up to 168, and so we'll see what happens. Those divisions are getting kind of interesting. So even Charlo's flirted with the idea, possibly, of maybe moving up just because he's kind of the only top middleweight without a legit dance partner in the near time future. So who knows? He might look up to 168. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And that, stay tuned. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what I can do better in future videos. Drop a comment, like, dislike, and catch you guys later.